Hello today, everybody. This is Stephanie K from Unveiling the Spirits, and today I want to unveil the spirits about politics. I think it is is becoming a very touchy topic. I'm not sure if it's always been a touchy topic as much as it is today, because I've only lived during this time period, so I'm not sure, but it seems to be turning into much more controversial than it used to be. Again, like I said, I'm not sure, but I know even within the church, I see a divide when it comes to politics and people, relationships being destroyed over politics and difference of opinions about politics. So I really wanted to, like I said, unveil the spirit today about politics to give Christians a more or non-Christians a more spiritual perspective on the matter. And so that's what I want to talk about today. So the first thing is sometimes you might notice me veer away is because I have points here, and I try to glance at them every once in a while just to make sure I don't get too far off topic, because I can. So I just want to make sure I'm staying on topic. So the first thing I wanted to title this "The Lie of Politics," because I do believe that there is a lie embedded within the ideology of politics, and it's not unusual. There's a lot of lies embedded in our culture and society that we are totally unaware of, and then we do things based on those lies, not realizing that they're the wrong thing. So there is a lie embedded within politics, and that is what I want to kind of explain today. So the thing is that politics is, you can't talk about politics without talking about the government, first of all. So I'll talk about the government first, and I don't want to give anybody the wrong idea about my stance or my opinion when it comes to the government, because I do think it's a necessary structure for our fallen world. Even the Bible, Jesus said to basically obey your rulers in the government because they're put in place there by God. But the thing is that we are living in a fallen existence, and although God was meant to be our government, so to speak, in our fallen existence, he's not. And so we have to have a system of structure and order in place to substitute for the one that we don't have outside of God. So it's very important that we have structure, and I talk about our need for structure and order a little bit in my third book of my series, God, Why Am I Not Married? Our need for order and structure, and why we require it. And so it's very important that we have some order here, even if we are living outside of God's will. So the government does provide that type of structure and order, and that's why we need to abide by it as much as possible, especially as long as it does not conflict with God's laws. It's important that we do that in order to keep order, and I believe that is why Jesus said to obey the government, because if he gave permission to disobey the government, could you just imagine the chaos, right? So yeah, we need order, and the government does provide that. I do think that Christians should vote and be involved in that process and what's going on, but there's a fine line between understanding that the government provides a sense of order outside of God's sovereign rule, but at the same time not being invested in it, and it's a fine line. It's almost a little bit difficult for me to explain exactly how you do that, but the best way that I can describe it is by saying, and I believe I said this in another video, to not be too invested in what is going on in this world, because everything that is going on in this world is corrupted. If it's outside of God, it's corrupted. And so if you become too involved in what's going on in this world, not only do you lose sight of the corruption, but you become a part of the corruption. So on the one hand, you understand what's going on, but on the other end, you keep somewhat of a mental emotional and spiritual distance from it, so that you don't become invested in the things that are going on in this world. And so I think that's like one of the first mistakes that a lot of Christians make, is that they don't separate their faith and their belief in God from what is going on in this world, because the only thing that we should be really concerned about when it comes to this world is saving souls and God's will. And that really is it. You know, you have so many Christians that get upset about taxes and unfair or fair this, or, you know, whatever the cause may be. But the truth is that we should just I don't want to say maneuver around these things, but basically find out what God's will is in the matter, you know, and not just become like another voice in the crowd of the people that's doing the same thing. But I'll get to the voice that we should be in the world in a moment. So what I wanted to, you know, get across is that all forms of government on this earth are corrupted. God is not interested in any form of government, not a democratic one, not a socialist one, not a dictatorship. He is not interested in any form of government that is here on this earth, because these forms of government only exist because we are outside of his will. Now, if we were in his will, there would be no need for government. God would be basically our source of government. So you have to be very careful about getting caught up in any of these governments in the world and feeling like they are good or that they represent God, because they absolutely do not, you know. And so you know, it's really important for us, because that's not to say that some of these governments might not represent some biblical principles. That's neither here or there. But God is perfect and complete in that you can't represent some of his principles on one end and then not represent his principles on another. That is the definition of corruption. And so even though a government might represent some good stuff and have some good sides to it, we must always recognize that this is not completely God's will, and therefore we should not become attached to it and invested in it to a certain degree. And so I'm sorry about the coughing, but according to the Bible, especially the book of Revelations, all of these man-made kingdoms are going to fall, including your favorite one, including America, including whatever world superpower comes up after America. All man-made forms of government and rule are corrupted, and they are going to fall. And it is the exact reason why God is coming back, to show us that the way we have been doing it since the beginning of time without him is wrong. So if you get so invested in your government and you think your government is so right and they're doing the right thing and they're representing the right things, even if it's in a political party sort of sense, you are automatically you're excluding God, or you're merging God with the faulty nature of human beings, which is incorrect, you know. And so you have to recognize that about government, and not become emotionally, mentally, spiritually invested in what they're doing, not to put your hope in what they're doing, or to be afraid of what they're unable to do, because then that's putting them in the place of God, and we should be trusting God for those things, not the government. You know, the government is only here to provide some sort of order until God returns. And so that is the first thing, I think it's important as Christians that we view the government from that way. Because another thing that I really get confused about sometimes with some Christians, because they seem so bent on trying to have fairness or create a sense of, I don't want to say quality of life in this world, but I'm kind of lost for a better word. But it's almost like they're trying to make this world comfortable for them and make this world their home. This world is not our home. As a matter of fact, as Christians, we should never really be that comfortable here. And so for you to be trying to orchestrate some certain or promote some certain principles and things on the basis of your own comfort or what you think is right or wrong, I question that, because we should understand that is not only is this not our home, in a fallen world, it's not possible. You can change some things, and there is some things about the world that has gotten better, but just as much as we get better, we also get further away from God. So there's really no answer to it but God, and to understand that our hope lies in Him and in eternity, and not necessarily what's going on in this world, regardless of where you live or how you feel. And so that's a major thing that I think a lot of Christians lose sight of, in not just government but politics in general, is that this is not something that we should be so invested in to that extent. And so, but anyway, to get to the what I call the lie of politics, is that on the surface you have these different groups that seem to me promoting good things, you know. I know some people would disagree and say that the Democrats are not promoting good things or Republicans are not promoting good things. But the truth is, they both promote some things that are good. And if you become really invested in either one of them, you can start to feel like you're on the good side. You know, that you're on the side of the people that are trying to do right, and that the other people are the ones that are doing wrong. And I've even heard people use biblical passages to back up their political stance, as it's associated with the political group that they are in. And the truth of the matter is that God is to attach biblical principles to a political party is to bring God down to man's level. If Jesus came here today, would he be a Democrat? No, he would not. Would he be a Republican? No, he would not. Would he be Green Party, Blue Party, Purple Party? No, he would not. Jesus would represent something totally different than anything we are doing here on the earth. If you think about, you know, from the beginning of time, not the beginning of time, but the Old Testament, anytime God came on the scene, whether it was through prophets, prophecy, or even Jesus himself, he always did things totally different than what people were expecting. So to think that God will come here and fall into our limited, faulty, corrupted criteria of what we think is right or wrong, I think is just totally delusional. God is not, he's going to say, I have my own party, you know. He has his own party, and his party is going to look totally different from Republican, from Democrat, from anything else that you can think of, because he's God. He's greater. I mean, if he comes here and he gets on our level, how sad would that be, that we have a petty God? Because a lot of the things we do in politics is just totally petty. God's supposed to come and restore order, to bring a totally different perspective on this whole thing that shuts the whole competition down, you know. So he's not going to come and be a part of what we're doing. And so even though some political parties may seem to represent some good aspects, they are still corrupted, and God is perfect, so he's not going to align himself with corruption. So God is not going to align himself with corruption. And actually that's the distinction, because if he was to come, like for us, we know we can't get things to like a perfect state, so we tolerate some things. God is not going to tolerate those things. So even when he comes, he is going to set everything right. He's going to represent something that is totally pure and untainted. He's not going to align himself with what we're doing when it is tainted with corruption. He's going to show us what it looks like to not be tainted with any corruption at all. And to be perfectly honest with you, one of the reasons that you know that he wouldn't align himself with any political party is because once he comes and shows us exactly what it looks like not to be tainted with anything, most people are not going to like that. I mean, just like Jesus came, was he I'm pretty sure the Israelites, you know, felt like if Jesus, the Messiah, came, he was going to be on their side. He's supposed to be an Israelite, and they were being unjustly occupied, and so they would think that Jesus was going to be on their side. But Jesus came and he was like, I'm not on the Roman side, and I'm really not on your side either, you know. And the way he came to try to set the whole thing right, to expose all the things that were corrupt, is what led to them wanting to kill him. And so the same thing would happen again. If Jesus came, you have these people so passionate on both ends of the spectrum. Well, not both, because there are more than two political parties. I just usually focus on the two major ones, but there are more. but they still fall in the same category. So you have these two political parties that people are so passionate about, and they have their picket signs or their voting record or whatever, thinking that God is going to come by and give them a stamp of approval and say, well done, when actually what he's going to do is show you that the wrong in what you have done. And that is why most of people are not going to like what he says. They're going to be angry about it because they've already committed their heart and their mind to what they're doing. And so, and that's the lie of politics. That's the problem with politics, is that it pits people against each other. And instead of, and with people, pit against each other, they are distracted from what the real problem actually is. It's not issues. It's not people. It's the fact that we're in a fallen state, and that the enemy, and within our fallen state, not only are we not doing things God's way, but the enemy is infiltrating everything we do, and we don't even realize it. And so, as long as you see people as the problem, because that's what politics does. Like I said, it pits people against each other to where I'm right and you're wrong. I'm doing good and you're being the problem. As long as you see people as the problem, you're not focused on what's actually real, what's actually true. The Bible says the war is not against flesh and blood. So as soon as you make flesh and blood your problem, you have been successfully distracted by the enemy from what is really going on, which is he's using those people. And just because he's using those people does not make them the enemy. That's the point of God and Jesus, is to come and save people from being used by him. So just imagine, if you see them as the enemy, how are you going to help and be effective in saving them from his influence if you are throwing them in the same basket with the devil and saying that they're the problem, they're the wicked ones, that we are doing everything right? And so you really have to consider that. I mean, the devil is very good at making us believe that we're doing the right thing when we're not. That's exactly what he did to Eve. And the way that he does that is, I might have said this before, is he mixes, like, the truth always existed. The truth was there before the world was even created. So what the devil does is he takes the truth and removes things from them, turns them backwards, and that is where lies come from. Lies are nothing more than a perversion of the truth. And so he takes the truth and he moves things around within the truth and takes them out of their designated spot and creates lies. And because we're fallen beings and we don't have all the knowledge that he has, we think, because it still looks like the truth on the surface, that it's the truth when it's not. So again, you can use Eve as an example. He told her things that some of them were true, but he just changed some of them slightly enough to where they were now lies. And so she thought that, I believe that her and Adam thought that if they ate from the tree, they were going to die instantly. So he was saying, no, you will not surely die. And he said, actually, you will become wiser. Both of those things were not lies. The lie was that they needed to be disobedient in order to become wiser. And because she didn't see what he was doing under the surface, she got deceived. And so he does the same thing. Now you have these political parties who think they are doing the right thing for the betterment of the world, the betterment of the government, the betterment of the nation and things like that, when really you are being deceived. Because if you really want to do what's better for the nation, for the world, you will be a light for God in the world. You will be represent peace and joy and happiness and restoration and salvation in the world. You will represent a different path away from all of the noise and the arguing and the bickering and the conflict in the world. You will represent, as a Christian, something totally different. And so okay, say for example, the devil is being used by those people. when Christians go up against the enemy, we don't fight by laws. We don't fight by Congress. We don't fight by picketing. We fight by, the Bible says, the weapons of our warfare are not carnal. So we use spiritual weapons, and God's spiritual weapons are love, our peace, our mercy, our kindness. That is actually serving those people and being willing to sacrifice some of your own comforts and things that you want to try to win them over from the devil's clutches. So when you get all wrapped up in, oh, so-and-so is wrong and so-and-so is, it's just the same noise that's already going on in the world. And so, yeah, it's Christians should be a different voice. We really should be, a different voice in the world. And so, it's not that, okay, like my daughter, she's getting older, and so she's becoming more socially aware of things, and so she knows some of my views about Christianity and politics, and so, or spirituality and politics, and she asked me, do I think Christians is it a sin for a Christian to run for office? And so my question to her is, because I know with a lot of this stuff I'm saying, there are going to be some people that are thinking like, well, what are Christians supposed to be doing? Like, are we supposed to just sit back and let people pass laws? And that's not what I'm saying, because they have their part to play. People who are perishing, people who are invested in this world, that is what they have to do, because this is all they have, is the world. Christians, we have more than this. So we approach things slightly different. And so we should not be doing the same thing that they're doing, because our investment is in something else. And so, back to the original question, what should we be doing? Like, for example, should a Christian run for office? And so I told her, and I have three points on that. Number one is, actually, if there was a Christian actually running for office on a platform of being a Christian and getting up and speaking the gospel and trying to draw people to Christ, which is what Christians should be doing, they are not going to win. They are not going to be elected into that office. They will not get enough votes to get in there in the first place. So that should tell you something right there, that if you cannot run on a purely Christian platform and preach the gospel about love and repentance and loving your fellow man and being a servant and everything that the apostles talk about, and win a seat in the government, that should show you right there that there's a problem there. Another thing is, even if they did win, they would have to be very, very strong, seriously rooted Christians in God and the Word to get in there and stay clean. Because, and when I say clean, I don't mean like taking bribes and stuff like that, but just compromising in general. Because it seems to me that a part of being in politics is having to compromise some of the things that you believe, to not only stay in there, but to meet the other person on the other end. And so a Christian should never compromise your Christian principles. You cannot do that, as a Christian. That defeats the whole purpose of being a Christian. And so you can't, even you feeling like, okay, I can compromise on this end because I'm getting to a better result on the other end. That is deception. That is one of the tricks of the enemy. You can never compromise, and you have to take whatever hardships or punishments or even, people slandering you because you don't want to compromise. This is exactly what Jesus did. And so for them to stay in that office and not be corrupted, not to fall prey to all the demonic activity that's going on there, because the Bible clearly states that the devil rules this world. So of course he's in the government. And so for them to stay there and actually do what God wants them to do in that office, they are going to have to be super, super strong Christians. Like, the level of strength they have to have and roots they have to have in God, I think any Christian that strong would not even want to go into politics, because they would feel like they have a calling towards something bigger than being entangled in man's attempt to keep order without God, And so God never told, as much as like people might want to say, well, Christians have to help and we have to take control of the government or be an influence in the government. God never, where is that in the Bible? God never told Christians to be a force to be reckoned with or to try to take over the government. He never gave us that responsibility. He told us to preach the gospel, to serve his people, to live upright before him. He never gave any instruction in the New Testament, from what I can see, that Christians should be so indulged in government policies, And so of course we can be an influence in it, like Daniel, he was a advisor to the king and things like that. That's different. And even if you think about it from that perspective, he never compromised what he believed to get that position. And so even if we were to go into those type of fields, we have to be very careful that we are following God and not being influenced by man or our own desires and biases and things like that. So like I said again, I think of the example of Jesus. He did not, when they came in and tried to give him that trick question about the taxes. Now, this would be even a hot topic today. I could just see somebody coming up to Jesus and say, don't you think that they should not be charging so-and-so this much, blah, blah, blah. I love Jesus, the way he always responded. It was like, it left you dumbfounded. Like, you couldn't say anything else, So do you really think he's going to say, yes, they should pay more taxes? No, he's not. He's going to say something that's going to shut you up and them up. And basically he's going to say, in so many words, I believe he'll say, like he said then, give unto Caesar what is Caesar's. Like, hey, just pay the taxes. That shouldn't be your main concern here. You are headed somewhere else. And go ahead and pay the taxes. Keep the controversy down. I'll provide for you. I want you to go out and speak my word. And so that is what I mean when I say the lie of politics is distracting. And some people might even still say, okay, well, what about these issues such as gun laws and abortion and same-sex marriage and things like that? As much as those things might appear to be, the Bible may back them, if they're taking your focus away from God, the devil will definitely use even biblical things that look biblically sound to take your focus off of God. So yes, some of those things are completely wrong, but are they so distracting to you that you're more focused on those issues than you are focused on God? You can't be so worried about somebody else's sin that you put God down and go tend to their sin. Like, that is not how it works. You stay focused on God, you ask God what to do, and you let God deal with those people who are sinning and make sure you're available to be used if he wants you to go deliver a message or be an example to those people. So yeah, the government is still going to be in place anyway. The government is still going to do what it is going to do, which is provide some type of order, and they have to do that. Like I said, this is their world, the people who are perishing, because this is all they have. So let them handle that type of stuff. Let them handle the laws and the bickering and the compromising and the attention and all that. Let them handle that. Christians should be doing something totally different in this world, which is representing Christ, representing peace, representing love, not judging people as far as like they're the problem, but always being sensitive to what God might want you to do with those people. Because you know what? If you see someone as the problem, you lose your compassion for them. You're not going to connect with them on a heart-to-heart level, you definitely are not going to serve them. So if you think a woman that's getting an abortion is so terrible, what if God tells you to go put your arm around that woman right after she had an abortion and talk to her and speak to her heart? You're going to be offended. You're going to say, no, look what she did. That is not how God operates. I mean, just look at what he did with the woman at the well. They were ready to stone her. And by all accounts, biblically, they seemed like they were right? But no, God said, let those who have not sinned cast the first stone. And so that is basically what I mean by the lie of politics. Christians have to be very careful that we don't blur the line, and that we keep our attention and our spirit and our heart and our minds focused on God and what he wants done, and not get wrapped up in all the mess that's going on in this world. Because if it's not corrupted, it is distracting. You know, we can't do that and do this. We can't serve God and then take off our servant of God hat and then dive into politics and blah, 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 blah. You know, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong. You know, so anyway, that's what I mean about the lie of politics. You guys can give me your feedback if you want down below. And ask me any questions if you have any. And I think that's all I have to say about that. So you guys be blessed, and you have a blessed day. And I hope again you got something out of this. And I guess that's it. Goodbye. Love you, and have a blessed day. Bye.